that's what we would consider. A war vessel, an example of a war vessel is a cruiser, a police cruiser. That's a war vessel.
Wow.
Now, when you go back to the treaty, hold up, where we at? Right here.
Yeah, we were looking at Article 6. That's what it was. You were going to explain Article 6.
Now, it says, now remember, it's a double-edged sword. It says, if any more, not a subject of these dominions shall make prize, then they shall, of any of the citizens or their effect, citizens of America, that is, or their effects, they shall be immediately released. But on the opposite side, if any more who is a subject of these dominions shall make prize of any of the citizens of America or their effects, they don't have to be released. It's the opposite.
When you say release, they shall be what's going to be released? The more or the stuff that the effects?
Both.
Mean not held liable for it or not.
Yeah, meaning not held as enemies' property. Okay. Because this treaty also talks about if a war, look right here, Article 5, if either of the parties shall be at war. So these are called rules of engagement or the rules of war. Because it's a treaty, it's an agreement. And we know that in an agreement, there can be discrepancies. So if there's a discrepancy, it says it in the treaty how that discrepancy shall be taken care of. So we have to get back to the treaty. We have to read this treaty with a dictionary and a fine comb. We have to comb through every single word, even the words we think we know. Still look them up. Because our life depends on it. So does our children's life depend on it. Did you know that if you don't know your rights or how important your rights are, that you don't have a right to your children? So that means your rights are more important than your children because they created a colorable agency called Child Protective Services. And for the subjects of these dominions, if those subjects are raising their child improper, which is not in accordance with the policy of the United States Corporation, they'll seize your children. So your rights are that important.
I spoke with a brother that's in the Tennessee Territory, and he was saying that he assisted a brother whose daughter was taken, who was arrested or kidnapped for something, and he actually had to claim her as a possession, sort of, if I'm getting it correct, the father, and was able to go into their court and get his possession back, as opposed to trying to get her released on whatever, what we would normally try to, whatever road we would normally go. He had to do something and declare her property pretty much in order to get his property back, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But the process that I know of is writ of habeas corpus.
Well, whatever, I don't know whether it was combined with that, but whatever it is, she was released as his property as opposed to his daughter. Because a child they can take, but property seems like you have more rights with property than you have with your offspring.
No, you have right to your offspring. It's real simple. Look, right here in Article 20. If any of the citizens of the United States or any persons under their protection, which would be the daughter, shall have any dispute with each other, the consul shall decide between the parties. So it's the consul's decision.
Yeah, but in absence of a consular court venue, then you're in their jurisdiction, even though you shouldn't be in that jurisdiction.
That's a great point that's a great point you just raised, because we're going to clear it up. Consul. Let's go to the definition of consul. All right, we're going to Consul, Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition. We should all know what consul is, especially the ones that are claiming to be in a position or hold a seat as consul. Definitely should know what consul means, because The people that you are speaking to on the opposite side, which is the United States, they know what consul means. They most certainly do. Consul, Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition, page 286, excuse me. Consul is an officer of a commercial character, appointed by the different nations to watch over the mercantile, that's the commerce, and tourist interests, that includes reversionary interests, of the appointing nation and of its subjects or nationals in or at foreign countries. Because remember, the United States is not a country. So we can't say in for foreign countries because no one can be in the United States.
Because the United corporation.
Yes, it's a corporation and it's in Morocco. So a consul is an officer of a commercial character.
We have vizier, vizier, I say it wrong.
Yeah, vizier is consul.
So it's another way of
minister.
There, you know, there have been some though that have argued the point that because we are the aboriginal or of the land that we don't need consul court, but we need something because other than their courts.
So let's go to the treaty. Where does it say anything other than consul for disputes to be settled? It doesn't say nowhere in here other than consul. And no, we don't have to wait for a foreign body politic to set up consular jurisdiction if the treaty authorizes both sides to exercise consular jurisdiction. So it will be by all means Morocco, which is the nation, consular court. Court. What does court mean? Got to break down the word. Let's go to court. Because we ain't gonna just go to consular court. Look, consular court is courts held by the consuls of one country within the territory of another. The United States is not a country. Under authority given by treaty for the settlement of civil cases. In some instances, they had also a criminal jurisdiction, but in this respect were subject to review by the courts of the home government. See 22 USCA 141, which was repealed. The last of the United States consular courts, Morocco, was abolished in 1956. Thus, they don't have consular jurisdiction anymore, but we still do. So let's go to courts because consular court is an international court. So let's go to court. We're going to go to court. No, you're going to court in 4th edition. You got to break down the word. Court. Okay, court. Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, page 425. Court, right here. And you're going to immediately go to international law. So court on an international law, which includes consular court, is the person and suit of the sovereign, the place where the sovereign sojourns with his regal retinue, wherever that may be. So the person or the personality and suit or the pursuit or the following of the sovereign. Who's the sovereign? The people. So the person and suit of the sovereign would be the people that are exercising the powers of government.
Not give you a point of correction. It seems like it's saying the person and suite. So if it's suite, that's like a place, like a suite. Like if you.
Oh, damn it, reading wrong. Yes, suite. Yes. So the person is suite. So it's the place. It's
a place. Yeah, okay. The person right. And the place of the, okay.
Of the sovereign, which is the people. Also, or in other words, I should say the place where the sovereign sojourns with his regal, which means royal, retinue, which means following, wherever that may be. So guess what consular court is? Let's all guess where consular court is. It says wherever that may be.
Wherever that may be.
Wherever that may be.
It's wherever.
Now, according to Title 22, when it was still in effect, how they put it, it says that in civil cases, it says such officers are also invested with all the judicial authority necessary to execute the provisions of the treaty, of such treaties, respectively, in regard to civil rights, whether of property or person, and they shall entertain jurisdiction in matters of contract, wherever that may be, right? At the port where or nearest to which it was to be executed, and in all other manners at the port where or nearest to which the damage complaint of was sustained. So that's where it will be. So
what are considered ports? Because I know what a port is because we have the port of this and the port of that. But in this sense, the port, is that like the place?
Yeah, well, we're gonna go. We don't want to guess because we're in the age of Aquarius.
Yeah, so we can know. We can know.
We're gonna go to port. This is the 5th edition. Port. Where we at? Okay, port. Black's Law 5th edition, page, what is this? 1045, port. A place for the loading and unloading of the cargoes of vessels and the collections of duties or customs upon imports and exports. This sounds like, where the Constitution at? Here we go. We go to one of those servant clauses, or what they would call slave clauses. Article 1, Section 9. It says the migration or importation of such persons. What persons? 3/5, as any of the states now existing shall think proper to admit, where? In port, shall not be prohibited by the Congress prior to the year 1808, but a tax or duty may be imposed on such importation, not exceeding $10 for each person. And right under there gives you the clause. It talks about releasing or freeing yourself of such status, which is the privilege or the writ of habeas corpus. That's the great writ of liberty. That's also known as the blessing of liberty. So to secure that blessing of liberty to any of the Moors who were subjects of the dominions, but they chose to go back and honor their foremothers and forefathers by turning their heart and mind back to the principles and creed of their foremothers and forefathers, they can come out of that slavery, that slave mind state.
And they did it for $10. For 10 notes, the $10, they were able to buy their way back into their.
No. The tax, the importation tax were for the ones that were made subject of these dominions.
Oh, so they had to pay for their, like we doing today, paying for enslavement.
Yeah, look, importation or migration or importation of such persons.
Wow.
It says a tax or duty may be imposed on such importation. Look, hold up. Let me do
any of these people, I know this is a far stretch, were any of these people, any of the Moors that were coming back who were shipped over to West Africa to start, like Monrovia and those areas of West Africa, the reverse migration. They say we came from there, but you got a lot that were sent that way. Did some say, hey, this is too hard, we went back in and they maybe came back?
Probably. Probably. But it doesn't change the truth.
Right.
But the truth is that part of the dominions is still a part of the Moroccan Empire.
Right. The soil over there is the same as the soil right here on the East Coast.
Absolutely. But look, importation. What's the root word of importation? Port.
Port is in there.
So port, a place either on the sea coast or on a river where ships stop for the purpose of loading and unloading cargo, or for purpose of taking on or letting off passengers from whence they depart and where they finish their voyage. A port is a place intended for loading or unloading goods, hence includes the natural shelter surrounding water, as also sheltered water produced by article jetties, etc. So,
Artificial.
right. So, a port, an example of a port today would be Prince George's County Circuit Court. Because when you go, what they say, when you pass the bar, where you at? Admiralty and Maritime, on the ship, docking, right?
So are
That's why
court and port synonymous?
Courts and courts?
Yes.
No. We just read what court was.
Okay.
It's the person and suite of the sovereign.
Okay.
But remember, that venue is not a court. That venue is a financial institution practicing, yes, practicing human trafficking.
You know what? I had an example of that back in, I want to say 20, I think it was 2016 or 15. I was coming back. I was coming home in an icy day and an icy night, and I drove up a street in my town slow because it was icy, and I had a red sports car, and there were a lot of cars going up the street at that time, and so I saw a police car with the flasher on. So I pull over thinking that there's an emergency, and I'm pulled over, and they told me that red sports car was going to get me in trouble. But the make a long story short, I got a ticket. They said I was going 42 in a 25 miles an hour zone. I was not. It was snow and ice, so I was not. And but when I went to court, they said to me, the magistrate said to me, offered me a PBJ. And I really was not being facetious. I thought he was offering me a peanut butter jelly sandwich. And I know that sounds stupid. But
no, I thought you were talking about a peanut butter jelly sandwich.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought he meant. So I didn't want. I'm like that old gospel song. I don't want no peanut butter and jelly. I want my ticket wiped away. But no. So I said peanut butter and jelly. I did. He said no. He said plead before judgment.
Oh,
said,
right.
What's that? So in other words, I could pay the fine without and not have to go to court to have that imposed on me, plus cost to court. And I said no, because I wasn't speeding.
Right.
And the only way that I really got out, I think, of, was because I was a city official. And by the time I got, they released me. Well, I wasn't never held, but the paper said released on OR, and I had a court date to come back. But between that time and that time, me being a housing director and me being, like my peer was the police chief. So I said to the police chief, this was crazy. I wasn't speeding. And matter of fact, I was so angry, I rode up another street 42 miles an hour you could go that fast on. And I knew darn well I wasn't going that fast. So by the time I got to their court, they dismissed it. And I'm sure it was only because I knew the chief of police, and because when I showed him my ID for work, and he saw that I was the housing director, the policy enforcer, he said, "Oh," because it was after he came up. He said, "You should have shown this to me before I wrote the ticket." So either I'm guilty of something or I'm not.
Well, even to say guilty or not guilty still gives jurisdiction, because they're not allowing you to plead innocent. What
I was saying is to him about him saying to me, had I showed him my ID before he went back.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's cool. They're practicing.
A city official, I wouldn't have got the ticket, but the ticket was already written and registered. I guess it was electronic. So if you had showed me this first, I wouldn't have given you one. Well, if I was really speeding, I should have gotten it. But you saying you would have looked the other way if I had handed you my city ID first?
Right. That's proof that they're practicing. They're not enforcing law.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they're practicing. And the place that you went to was considered a port. And a port, I highlighted, is a place intended for loading or unloading goods. So
they was trying to unload me for my.
Right. So now a port also is represented as the place where they take you, what they call the detention center or prison, because that gate, I hadn't seen it enough times. That gate says port right on front of it. Port.
Really, port? Oh,
Yes, it
wow.
does.
For the life of me, I can't understand, except now they're trying to shake down the family members, because most of the time, because I was a volunteer in the prison here for several years as a pastor, and
Mhm.
I couldn't, men were in there, say, for child support payments. And my thing was, okay, so now they're incarcerated. How are they going to pay the child support because they're incarcerated? Or if they finally get out, then they take their driver's license because it's theirs, and they
Right.
can't drive to go do anything. So it seems like they put people in a catch-22, and then the family is held hostage, putting their houses, their property up for, for bail, and hundreds and hundreds of dollars for phone calls and stuff. Everything in there is a business.
Yes, that's
And a
it.
shakedown. You got to buy your raggedy little TV from them. You got to do this. You can't. It was just so much
Oh
they
my
do.
goodness.
And kinfolk had to bear the burden of it. And if they're in there for lack of paying child support, how are you ever going to pay it if you're in there? Because
Yeah,
now they've got them in there working for pennies a day.
yeah. Do you know how many people came to me asking me to help them with their child support case? It's so many people in there for child support, prison
Mm-hmm.
for child support, and they
Right.
all said the same thing. How in the hell am I going to pay the child support if I'm in here?
Right.
And they force you to get a job in there too, or you'll get what they call a ticket or citation, and they'll send you to the hole, and they'll take what they call good days away from you for not having a job, because it's also involuntary servitude.
Right, because they're making pennies, and then they
Yeah.
have them in there. A lot, a lot of people think that the industry, a lot of the factory jobs went overseas. Not all of them. They went inside the private prison industrial complex.
Yes. And we need to put an end to. We are the only people on this land that can put an end to all of that, because the power is vested in us. It is not vested in them. No different than if a family, a homeless family, was to come to your property by your invitation, and they start, you created a lease agreement and an insurance policy, which is what the Constitution and the treaty is: a lease agreement and an insurance policy. They violate the lease agreement and they break their insurance, the insurance that we have against them. We're the only people that can put that platform back in order. We are the only ones.
You read in the treaty that till one or the parties ends it with 12-month notice. Well,
Yes.
then they've never ended it, because they are receiving the benefits all this time of it being open. We are the ones then that would have
Yes.
to enforce the treaty.
Yes, but we got to come together and know the treaty language, the jurisdiction, and it's enforced under consular jurisdiction, consular law language. Now, look, when we visit them, this is how we're supposed to be operating when exercising the functions of consul, as well as the functions of treaty enforcement. Article 4, it says, a signal, or even exercising a birthright, a signal or pass shall be given to all vessels belonging to both parties, by which they are to be known when they meet at sea. Sea, remember Taj talked about this, Holy See, SEE.
Right.
Also, the Sea of Commerce, which is known as Admiralty and Maritime. And just because they're exercising their platform under Admiralty and Maritime, let's see if the Constitution covers Admiralty and Maritime jurisdiction. Our forefathers knew what they were doing. So Article 3, Section 2, it says, the judicial power shall extend to all cases, meaning all controversies in law and equity arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States, and treaties made or which shall be made under their authority, to all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers, and consuls. And look here, to all cases of amity and maritime jurisdiction. That's the law of the seas. It covers it. So consular court can reach that venue. Consular court can reach that issue. And it's not even an issue. To add insult to injury, let's go to case, the word case. That's why I said we got to look up these terms. Case. And see, I'm not gonna lie, I looked these terms up. Most of these terms I looked up when I had time, you know, in the human trafficking camps, out of boredom and interest. So there wasn't nothing to do in there but work out, eat, play video games, because they gave you the video games, the distractions in there now. They got the Xbox and all that, or study. And I chose the latter, study. I looked at it like, you know, it was law school. So case, Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition, page 195, going down to 196, where it says cases, or supposed to, where is it at? Oh, past it, right here. Cases and controversies, starting at 195. This term, as used in the Constitution of the United States, pay attention to that, embraces claims, contention, or contentions of litigants brought before the court for adjudication by regular proceedings established for the protection or enforcement of rights, or the prevention, redress, or punishment of wrongs. And whenever the claim or contention of a party takes such a form that the judicial power is capable of acting upon it, it has become a case or controversy. Then it says the federal courts will only consider questions which arise in a case or controversy, i.e. only justiciable cases. And then it refers to Article 3, Section 2. The case or controversy must be definite and concrete, touching the legal relations of parties having adverse interests. The questions involved must not be moot or academic. Pay attention to this. Nor will the courts consider collusive actions. Now let's go to collusive action. Let's see what a collusive action is. And yes, collusive is short for collusion.
Collusion, yep.
So we're going to collusive actions on page, right here, page 240, collusive action. This is going to add insult to injury. A collusive action is an action not founded upon an actual controversy between the parties to it, but brought for the purpose of securing a determination of a point of law for the gratification of curiosity or to settle rights of third persons, not parties. So when we look at state of Delaware versus the all cap name that look like yours, who's the third party? Who's the third party that's not a person? Well, we would know by going to color of law. Color of law, Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition, page 241. The appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right. Misuse of power possessed by virtue of state law and made possible only because wrongdoer is clothed with authority of state. Is action taken under color of state law. So any action taken under color of state law is called a state action. And the wrongdoer in that action is clothed with authority of state, meaning the wrongdoer or the third party is the state's attorney, the police, and the acting administrative clerk pretending or purporting to be a judge. That's called a collusive action.
Speaking of judge, we were going to talk. We talked about something in the case of you be the judge.
Yes, because the 10th Amendment. Now, what is the action involving? It's involving your person, or it's involving your property. Now, the last time I checked, if I have something in my possession and I have a allodial title to it, or aboriginal title to it, and I make the claim, and then somebody brings a collusive action against my estate and try to get me to consent to be surety for the nom de guerre that they're charging, which belongs to them, and they hold reversionary interest in, we're going to go over reversionary interest too.